Thank you, Martina. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon in the meantime. First, I would like to thank the persons who invited me to be here and this wonderful conference and the magnificent city of San Sebastian. I have some 15 to 20 minutes to talk about smart homes. That's, of course, by far not enough. I could talk for hours, but okay. And certainly after the great presentation of Sarah Thomas, and I remember one key message: health starts from home. That's indeed where we are talking about these days. I will guide you a little bit through some experiences, some learnings that I have done, I've acquainted in the past 30 years that I'm working in this area. And I will do that with what is actually a smart home, what are some practical examples, what are some costs and benefits that you could consider when talking about for aging and care, what are some future developments, and that's particularly of interest, I think. There are some ethics. So, what is a smart home? And to be honest, I haven't seen too many people here with gray hair as I have, but when I was a child, and I could look at the television of my parents, which was a big black and white, big TV screen, there were the Jetsons. And you probably have never heard of that, but the Jetsons was a cartoon. And in '62, they already painted here, in the cartoon there was a robot, there was a flat screen, there was at that time a robot cleaner, and there was video conferencing, and they moved in a flying car, a sort of flying car. Now, 60 years later, you see all these kind of things have now have come to reality. And we are still not there, but you must also think and consider, and you also learned that, I think, from the presentation of Sarah, that we don't need to wait another 60 years, but maybe another 10, 15 years before we have the same expansion, the same impact of technology as it has been in the past 60 years. So that's another thing that we have to consider and to think about. Now, what is actually a smart home? There's a lot can be said about that. And first, it's simply a house where many things happen automatically. There are many sensors, actuators, central programming, and when I started 30 years ago, it was only wired, many wires, but now most of the things are wireless. And what you see these days is that you can buy smart controls, smart lighting, even at a supermarket. But does that make a house smart? No, that's not the case, I think. But on the other hand, there are developments, and it has been shown already. You can also see that here in the exhibition. We are moving really from reactive towards proactive houses in the near future, and actually it's going on already. We also see a strongly increasing number of chips and data collection, as we know, like in the self-driving car. So the house will be really something like an electrical car. There is electrical car, you can say the full autonomous electrical car is some 10 years in advance from the smart house, but we are moving in that direction. And when we did a lot of experiments, we started in 2000 in the Netherlands, and we were involved in building smart houses for older people, and we have realized some 10,000 in the years 2000 to 2010. So 10,000 houses were more or less in the experiments with housing associations, and they costed 20,000 euros per house at that time. That was a big investment. Now, I would say the same applications as we had at that time would cost now roughly 1,000 euro. So you see, in 10 years, well, now in 20 years, I should say, because that was around 2000, the cost has decreased enormously. And the main purposes are, of course, where we talk here about independent living, particularly also energy monitoring and management, and of course also some comfort and luxury, but we will not address that today. Okay, I go a little bit more quickly because else I will run out of time. I only take a few examples here just to have you become more aware of what we are talking about. And that this is maybe for a younger person, and it exists. You can simply approach your own home without doing anything, and the door is opened automatically without touching the door, so maybe in 10 meters, 20 meters, whatever you like, and the lighting is switched on, and so on. Is this desired? No, there are still some problems with that, safety, security, and so on, but it is simply possible, and some people really have such an application on their smartphone. Another thing which is really working for maybe a decade and quite a lot applied in our country in the care organizations, if an older person is living by him or herself and has fallen, you see there are many fall detectors coming up and have come up, and many are not working right, but some are working now quite well. It's very difficult. But if it's so, if it's detected, an automatic signal is sent to the care center, to the call center, and the centralist in the call center can open the door remotely for the nurse or the ambulance or whoever needs to go inside the house. So these kind of things are, I would say, not standard, but are well-proven applications for all the people. And of course, you all have, no, not all, but many people have these days the remote control of your temperature in the house for elevating or decreasing the thermostat. And there are many things added to that, and I will come back on that later on. So, in the aging and care area, what you see more or less standard in practice these days, at least in the countries, the Northern and Western European countries, but I'm sure here also in Spain, you see, well, simple things like automatic lighting when you go to the toilet at night in order to prevent falls. This is the most cheap and well-established solution, but there are still many older people that don't like it. They say, we know our way when I go to the toilet. Falls detection and automatic alarming, I talked about that already. Electronic door lock, yeah, also here at the exhibition I saw the door locks. They came, let's say again, from 1,500 euros 20 years ago to maybe something like 100 euros these days. So I would say it's common, but it's not common in most of our houses. If I ask now who has an electronic door lock in your own house, probably no one. So it's still considered as, you have one? Okay, good, at least one person. Good. But still, there is a big market to fill in. So, yeah, automatic switch off of equipment at night. We started also with that. It's useful, it's handy. You don't forget to switch off the iron, or it's even energy saving, and these kind of things. But it's one of the early applications that we implemented. Medication reminding. Offering day structure, these things are particularly useful for people with dementia. Now my pointer has disappeared. Oh, it's back. Okay, anyway, I have to go on. Some issues about costs and benefits. The costs. Yeah, there are many costs involved, and I want to stress that. And maybe you are aware of that if you have been involved in smart home deployments. It's not simply the device. It's, and there are many devices if you want a real smart home, but it's the monthly fee that many providers would like to ask you. And there are installation costs, and there is the maintenance cost. And that's another thing that people forget a lot. Things not only go wrong after a short time, but there's also, by many older people, that's just a practice and experience, they cannot really properly use the buttons or remember which buttons are the right ones to use. So that causes also many times coming back and changing let's say, the settings. We also have noticed that in the past 3 decades, standardization is one of the bigger issues. And even today, companies like Samsung and Apple and Amazon, they are talking to each other in new settings of standardization. So if you bring in many devices, sensors, in one house, normally they don't talk to each other. And that is something that you need to be aware of. You cannot simply plug different systems and suppose they work together. So the question is always, would you like more vendors, or should you deal with one particular overall provider? And that's also what Sarah said already in her presentation. There is one big company, a service company, and it could be, what was it, a company that provides all the services, but also the installation and the other services connected to that. So more technologies, what we also see is in the northern western welfare state companies, reimbursement is considered as natural, as self-evident, but we see now that our governments are saying, no, too much reimbursement, so you must pay it yourself. So do you really see a shift of reimbursed, fully paid, to pay it yourself and consider it as a consumer product? So what are really benefits? Yeah, again, here we heard that in the previous lecture, labor-saving technologies, because of the shortages of nurses in each country globally. Saving time of informal caregivers, also something that you might forget. But informal caregivers spend so much time in the care for the person they take care for, and that technology could help saving their time as well. Yeah, and of course, longer period of independent living. Improvement of quality of life, certainly, of the resident, and again, the informal caregiver. And there are additional benefits, not to forget in these days, of course, energy saving and comfort. And then something that we are also experimenting a little bit more on. You give a lot of your data, you're not aware of that, but why not monetize the data that you give to these companies? And we are now experimenting with some reduction in service fees if you give the data to such a company. So the benefits, I think that's a more or less global conclusion, will only outweigh the cost if the standardized tech is used and preferentially provided by one system integrator or one service provider, and taking into account the benefits of all stakeholders, including the informal caregiver and, of course, the professionals and so on. So, some future developments, and I go now I do a little bit of technology. I keep it very simple, but I would like you to understand what the future is, and in fact, it started already. But maybe you are not all aware of what is the system, what's going on with data and smart systems, what we also call IoT systems, and that will be part of our home, our smart home, in the very near future. So here you see a simple lock, a person that has a mechanical key and opens the door. That's a very simple scheme, technical scheme. It's a little bit more complex. If you switch on a light, you need to push a button, and you need some electricity, and then the light turns on, and you see that the light is on. Very simple. It's a little bit more complicated already with temperature control, with your heater or cooler. You have the thermostat, which you can change manually. And then a signal is going to the heater, and there's energy coming and so on, and there's some feedback to the thermostat, and there's feedback to the person because you feel it's warmer or cooler. Still very simple. Now it comes more interesting, and you saw a picture already, and you have that probably in your own house as well. You can program or switch the settings of the thermostat via your smartphone. So you give input here, it goes via the cloud, via internet, and so on. So the same, but you have now also some feedback on your smartphone, what the temperature is in your house. So you can do that from anywhere, and you don't need to be at home. So now it becomes very interesting that the newest systems, the IoT systems, so to say, they also consider the weather. So what weather will it be today and tomorrow and so on? And you have, of course, still your own preferences. You have your smartphone, but the database with the weather data is also included with, of course, some management and can program the thermostat. So this is already more complicated. And now I go a little bit further here. What you see here is that you need indeed data analytics, because the weather data need to be analyzed, and an alert or whatever can also be programmed. But you see, it becomes more complicated. You still have your smartphone, you have the weather database, and you need such a system. And that is a simple way of looking at, and I'm going here to, I stay here for what the explanation is, but what you see, what is going on in building a real smart house. We do that right now in a project which is called SMILE, one of the examples that I could demonstrate, where we use a lot of data from an older person, from all kinds of sources, sensors. We combine that with a conversational agent that can be a chatbot or of your choice, or a written or a voice chatbot or whatever input that gives you information, that gives you access to the data. But what we do with the data in the house is with machine learning and predictive and training modules, we get knowledge about what the older person living alone or by himself, wants maybe to do, or what would like to do maybe in 1 hour, based on historical data and so on. And then we, via the conversational agent, the system will suggest things to do next to the person that we are talking about. So we know then more about the intentions, the habits and needs, like I showed in the slide with the weather data. So it provides useful proactive suggestions regarding daily social activities. So if we think the person has not moved out, if we see that for a couple of days, we suggest you should take part in some social activities, you should go out and so on. So this is, of course, very, what to say? It looks very simple, although it's complicated, the technology, but reality is, of course, totally different. You cannot simply say, and I have experienced that myself also, when talking to people with dementia particularly, but also other people with somatic problems, it's not so simple like, okay, that I listen to this kind of technology. I forget this one because of time. But I would like to discuss a little bit of these questions that I started with, and that's the ethics. So, what we are all doing, giving suggestions, and particularly with people with cognitive decline. What we do is we try to involve them as much as possible, but also their informal caregivers, in what we can suggest and can suggest to maintain their quality of life and their well-being and their social activities. But I think, and we do that with co-creation, so we ask them all the time, please tell us what you like. But the 5 principles, the 4 principles that you probably all know, do good, do no harm, and preserve human agency and be fair. We think, and that's also what the European Commission now promotes, you should add the principle of explicability, namely operate transparently, because all what we do in the black boxes, the technical companies, with big data, what are they doing with these data? That is what we ask you for, operate transparently. So, the concluding remarks here regarding the ethics and also questions to you to think about is who will be, and this is another way of thinking, or another question that I didn't talk before, who will be responsible when algorithms are not right? Oops, sorry, I should go back. So when the algorithms are not okay, not right, and all these programming, there are still a lot of mistakes and failures. And the house starts cooling. For instance, who is to blame here? Is it the technologist, is it the programmer, or is it the person, the resident himself? And then what is basically right and wrong? And now we talk again here about the data. If companies use our data, my data, as an older person living in that house, okay, I accept that because it improves, it helps me improving my health, then it's okay. But if the companies use our data to become even more richer and so on, and abuse that, sell it to other companies and so on, is that okay? There's a lot of discussion already on that, I know that. But also this is happening in your own house. If our behavior and habits in our own house are more and more being suggested and controlled, and that's what's going on with all this AI stuff, I should say, and with a real proactive house. Are we still then autonomous? Well, think about that. I have, again, talked to many people, also people with dementia. They say, I feel I'm not autonomous anymore, so please don't do that. I want to have control over my own life, so don't do that. Are we losing one or more of our basic Maslow needs? And you know, security, safety is one of the basic needs. The house was, in the past, and it has always been, and still should be, a sort of cocoon. You like to withdraw yourself and have no intrusion. You want to be yourself and not being watched, surveyed, and so on. That's at least my feeling of a nice house. But a house, the smart house of these days, is not a house without walls. It's open. And can we live with that? Or if we benefit enough from that? So that's the basic question I would like you to think about when installing smart houses, maybe for yourself, but also for all the people who cannot decide. That's my presentation. Thank you.